Dear brothers, what's up, boys? Crazy times here at the Taylor household. We're moving, we've got stuff everywhere. Our dogs are losing their minds because life is a little bit hectic. So this is a fun time. We're getting ready for this move, and that's all thrilling and exciting and everything. But boy, does it put our dogs into a psychopathic tizzy. So if you hear them making ungodly noises in the background, they're trying to kill each other or something. Anyways, hopefully you guys are in for a good weekend. Remember that we talked about kind of controlling the inner animal yesterday. John Gwynne, Bloodsworn Trilogy, read those books, they're terrific. So speaking of controlling the wolf, let's talk about feeding the wolf today. And we want to get into more of a protein conversation, which we've been kind of on for the last couple of weeks. But I got a couple of questions about it, and I want to discuss one of the important factors, which is this big question. And that is, does increasing our protein help with weight loss because it makes us feel more full? So if you're eating a bunch of protein, you feel more full, thus you eat less of other things, and you lose weight. Because at the end of the day, you know, most people, although there are plenty of us that are trying to get bigger and stronger and what have you, a great majority of men are trying to lose some weight, which is fair. The great majority of us are overweight. And so this is kind of be aimed at that idea where if we're trying to lose weight, does eating higher protein help with that? So let's break this down a little bit. There are several things that we have to consider when we talk about increasing protein intake. The first one being, what is a high protein diet? Because there's a lot of data and numbers on the internet, and all of it seems a little bit much. So when you look at like total caloric intake, there are numbers between like 10% and 35% of your diet should be protein. That's a very large change. And so when we're talking about protein, some people think that, or they've been told that they should be getting 0.4 grams per pound body weight of protein in a day. And that is far too low. When we look at kind of dietary guidelines, that's kind of one of the starting points-ish is 0.4, but pretty much everyone concurs that that is too low. So we have 0.4. So let's say that somebody is 0.8. Which you guys have heard me make the recommendation that 0.8 grams per pound body weight to 1 gram per pound body weight is basically where people want to be. So I would not call that a high protein diet. I would call that's what you need to have in a day. However, most of you listening to this probably aren't getting that, roughly speaking, in a day. Most clients that I take on are well below 0.8. We're usually looking at 0.5 or 0.6 grams per pound body weight in a day. I think the average American male gets somewhere around 90 grams a day. And it's not a lot. So any increase from where they are would be considered a higher protein diet. But as a generic statement, most people, unless there's some odd issue that we're dealing with, should be getting between 0.8 grams and 1 gram per pound body weight per day. I weigh 212 pounds. I should be getting about 212 grams of protein in a day. So I wouldn't consider that a high protein diet. What I would say is that all of you that are too low, you should be looking to increase that number. So first things first, a high protein diet I don't think really exists until you start getting north of the recommended numbers. You start doing 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Like, yeah, that's a very high protein diet. And we don't necessarily have a lot of info that says that that's better than just getting between 0.8 and 1. There's still lots of research to do on that. So that's part one, is that a high protein diet should just be a normal diet. You eat 0.8 grams to 1 gram per pound body weight. All right, we're leaving that. So now the question is, does protein directly affect hunger or alter hunger? AKA, are we more full? Are we more satiated when we eat protein? And so we do know that the answer to that is pretty much yes. So when you eat more protein, we seem to see that there are an increase in the satiety hormones, if you will, in your gut. We see that there's an increased thermic effect of protein. So protein is more costly essentially to break down and move around. And one of the cool things that we've seen is that I'll give you an example on that thermic effect. So they've done some studies where they have people eat the exact same amount of calories, but in the two groups, one group is high protein, low carb, and in the other group, they are high carb, low protein. Hopefully I got those right. One is high carb, low protein, one is high protein, low carb. So they eat the exact same amount of calories, but they had different percentages for both. And basically what they found is that the group who was eating more protein, was far less hungry than the group that ate high carb. And to that end, the group that ate more protein did have a little bit more of a caloric burn than the other group, even though both groups were eating the exact same amount of calories. So that in and of itself kind of tells us a little bit about the effect that protein can have, at least on how, satiated that we can be. So one of the big things that I like to look at is, although higher protein diets, or when you're eating a lot more protein, one of the reasons that people also lose weight that I have seen is that the minute you tell people to eat more protein, the rest of their diet tends to clean up. So if your protein is low, you will usually, not always, but usually, you're going to fill your diet with more calorie dense foods. Again, to that group of people that ate a bunch of carbs and low protein, they were more hungry. They were more likely to want to snack and to eat other things. And that just introduces more calories into your diet. So one of the things that I see all the time is that people that are eating higher protein tend to just start eating more cleanly overall. Part of that's because they're more full, so they just don't have as much room to get other food in. But a big part of that is that you just tend to clean your diet up when you eat more protein. That seems so silly, but it's super true. And something that I want all of you guys to understand, so I know we've harped on this protein thing hard, and I know I probably sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but the minute you start actually getting enough protein in your diet, I see people lose weight within several weeks, typically, consistently. As long as they're being consistent, they start losing weight. And they feel better, and they feel like they look better, their muscles feel better, which brings us to a very important point, is when it comes to losing weight, when it comes to trying to lose fat, it is so important that protein goes unchanged. Because a lot of people, they'll go, okay, I'm usually eating 2,000 calories a week. I need to drop to 1,700 calories a week. And their protein drops. Well, if it was already low, you can't drop it any lower. And the reason for that is that protein is what allows our muscles to grow. We need it for muscle growth. And so one of the major mistakes, biggest mistakes that I see clients do, is that when they try to cut, they cut calories from everything. They cut protein and carbs. They cut all of their calories down. So let's say, for instance, somebody was eating, let's call it 100 grams of protein, 200 grams of carbs, and 50 grams of fat. They cut all of them down 10 to 15%. And that's not what we want to do when it comes to losing weight, because we want to be losing fat weight, certainly. We don't want to lose skeletal mass and skeletal muscle mass. And so if you're not getting enough protein in your diet, you're not going to maintain or gain any muscle mass. That's a problem. We know that muscle mass is really one of the keys to anti-aging, if you will, because the stronger, the more muscle you have, the harder you are to kill. It's just all there is to it. It's why it's so important when you look at like who should have more protein, a 15-year-old or a 65, 70-year-old. A lot of people would say the 15-year-old, but that's not true. It's the 65, 70-year-old, because not having muscle mass at that age is far more detrimental and dangerous than it is for the 15-year-old. So we have to understand that if you're going to cut, if you are listening to this and you want to lose weight, you do not change protein, okay? And we'll go back to the satiety part here. Yes, we have found that people who eat more protein are just more full. I can attest to that personally. Now, one thing that I will say, and I've said this on here before, make sure you eat whatever protein you're going to have first. So, example being, if you're out to dinner, eat the protein-rich food first. You will feel more full for everything else. When you start with the things that are heavy carb laden or fried, you just tend to want to eat more, okay? So the evidence is clear that weight loss and body composition drastically improve. You get far, far better when you increase protein in your diet. So if you want to increase fat loss and you want to maintain or at least increase protein simultaneously, protein cannot be below the right threshold, or you have to be getting more than you were before. So for all of you on here who are not tracking protein still, please, for all that is holy, just track it, okay? It is not a complicated thing to do. It's, you know, the math is easy. We have all these apps today. I have my own app that does it. You are all capable of doing it. But from a full perspective, from feeling more full, protein does improve satiety. Certainly more than carbohydrates do not. They just make people tend to want more. That seems to be the data that we're seeing today. Another quick point. You must be getting north of 20 grams of protein in a sitting, okay? I think I talked about this on the last episode that we discussed about protein, but if you want muscle protein synthesis to take place, you have got to be getting 20 grams. I tell people 25 is a safe spot, but at least north of 20 grams of protein so that muscle protein synthesis can take place. And there's, you know, the data seems to be mixed on this. I've seen a few people review this, but it also seems to be that if that is the point where muscle protein synthesis takes place, that's probably also the point where we start getting some kind of, you know, satiation or signals from the body to feel more full. And so that's not well versed out yet, but that seems to be kind of the thought from some of these researchers and doctors that have looked into this. But I'm not going to beat a dead horse today, even though I've already done it. And I know I've said lots of similar things to all of you. However, it is important that we all understand that the more protein you eat, the more full you're going to feel, which is going to make it easier for you to lose weight. And what we found is that people that have more protein in their diets, they almost always tend to just be eating cleaner throughout the rest of their life, which will also help them lose weight. Third part to that, the more protein you are eating, the more likely you are to maintain and or build further muscle mass, which is an absolute must. Your skeletal muscle mass is a non-negotiable. The more muscle you have on you, the harder you are to kill, the less likely we are to have issues long term. And you'll look jacked and tan with your clothes off. It's all a beautiful thing. So make sure you stay on top of those things. Get north of 20 grams pretty much always. I think that's about everything that we're going to dive into on protein today. Those are all good things. Questions on it? Drop your comments. Let me know. I'll have a link in the bio as well if you guys want to support the show. I appreciate it. And I'll be dropping a link also for another little merchandise site here pretty quick, which I'm pretty stoked about. So this is actually the t-shirts that just got shipped by Go Train. I love them. They are terrific. We will probably, you know, work with them again. I am an ambassador for them. Love their stuff. Go check out Go Train. I'll drop my discount code in the bio here too, so you guys can use that. Otherwise, have an incredible weekend. I'm going to go see if my dogs are killing each other more effectively at the moment. I love you all. God bless. Be strong. Let's have an incredible weekend, boys. We'll see you.